I'm Butch Stearns of the Pulse Network. This is our coverage of the HealthIT Summit here 2012, joined alongside by Kurt Johnson of Courion. Kurt, how are you?
I'm doing well, Butch.
Yeah, you've been all over this conference.
Yes, a couple different areas, panels and case studies. It's a good time.
This is day one of our two-day conference. I've found this very interesting, this conference. It's moved very well today. You feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. I think, the breadth of issues that the folks who are in IT for healthcare is expanding further and further. So to come to one place to see so many different of those topics covered has just been incredibly helpful for, I think, a lot of the people I've been talking to here.
Let's talk about the business model and what you do at Courion. I love your mission statement, if you will, that says we work with leading health organizations to ensure that the right people have the right access to the right information and are doing all the right things. It pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think especially in healthcare, the movement to electronic patient records is incredibly beneficial for physicians to understand immediately when they walk into a patient room, the background of that patient, the test results right at their fingertips, the allergies, incredible improvements for patient safety and patient care. But with all of this data becoming more and more accessible, you also have to deal with the other side of it, the bad guys who want to get access to that data.
Right.
So how do you manage both sides of it? It's an incredible concern for the security people to give the caregivers the access, but make sure at the same time we're only giving the access they need to do their job and keeping the information away from the people that shouldn't have it.
You just came off the podium doing a case study about Herman Memorial, and it was very thorough in how it works from one end to the other in the organization. So I've asked everybody this question, but I'll ask you based on that too. Within your own organization, especially when it comes to healthcare IT, how do you decide who gets access to that key information within your own organization? It's something that IT professionals deal with all the time in every industry, isn't it?
It is, and I think the important part of that is that's not IT's job. That's the business manager. So they're the only ones who know, here are my employees, this is what they need to do their job. It's IT and IT security's job to protect that and to facilitate that in an efficient way that enables the people to get the access. But if we're telling doctors to go in and saying, hey, Kurt, does Butch need access to system 497 with subcode 3211, they're going to look at us like we're crazy. So how do we put that in terminology to say, hey, do they need access to the oncology patient's test results? That's what the doctors figure out. IT figures out how to manage that and efficiently get it to them and turn it off, and that's where the balance resides.
Yeah, and of course when you get to an industry like healthcare, something that's so personal, you very quickly, as you mentioned on stage, get to legal issues, get to HIPAA laws, get to all kinds of different levels. But again, in this day and age of open, social, and mobile, you've got people within your organization that are tweeting out, that are sending things out that want access both mobile and immediately and in different forms and cross-platform and all that. So again, you have all those challenges, adding the complexity and level of security with healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not getting any easier. So more and more data, more and more devices, and security can't be what they tried to do in the past, which was to be Dr. No and say, no, you can't have this. Physician's not going to put up with that. So if they want an iPad, they're probably going to get an iPad. So they become responsible for how do we figure out, how do we manage the data on it? How do we make sure they're not doing things that are both, malicious, but also just inadvertent? And one of the security professionals we work with says, I can't secure stupid. So how do I at least know enough of what's going on and put enough controls to give them what they need, but we can monitor and maintain that stuff as best as possible to prevent a lot of the greater risks from happening.
So when you work with a client, let me give you two different types of clients. One that really is behind and needs to catch up with their infrastructure, their data, their processing, all of it. Or you have clients that are down the road. Where do you, I guess there's two different answers here, but where do you get them to start? Do they start with data? Do they start with infrastructure, whether they're well along or they're behind?
Some of the more further ones along, they have a better grasp on where's my most sensitive information, what systems are they in. The ones further behind, they're just slowed down in a sea of data everywhere. So kind of depending on where they are in that spectrum, our mantra is incremental progress over delayed perfection. We're not trying to say, hey, you got a 3-year plan and at the end of it you'll get what you need. How do we bite off chunks? And is it that the biggest issue are people leaving the organization who access hasn't been turned off, let's start with termination only. Is it people changing job functions? So it starts with the discovery. Look to understand where is the information, what access policies are most concerning around some of those, where do we have some of the most open access, and start there. And let's bite those off in chunks, get some key wins that you can broadcast against the organization, and continue to move towards your long-term goals of solving this.
Let me ask you a final question about maybe something you've learned from here that was surprising to you or got reinforced while you were here. For me, for example, I'll go first, is Gary Barnett. I find him refreshing because his whole theme of his conversations to me starts with, you're not going to solve all the problems here right away. Okay, so now that you've accepted that, let's talk about how we can bite the elephant one bite at a time, you know?
Yeah, I think that's it, that the pragmatic approach. How do you really take all this kind of information and enable you to put it together to where you should start? And I think some of that even came out, which was interesting from the panel, of how many people are actually, you hear about cloud. You think everybody's doing cloud. Right. It's like the airline magazine philosophy is, my boss saw it, so now we have to do it. Right. Now you've got, when you ask a show of hands, you saw not so many hands go up, or very tentative and limited spots. So I think that's always the eye-opening thing. You get caught in some of these waves of technology and think everyone's just well down that road, where people are at different points along that curve.
Or what I've found too from dealing with a lot of IT people and of our clients is only so many people may raise their hand, but the others are probably being transferred to the cloud and they don't even know it.
Exactly. And when it's a surprise, now you got to deal
Kurt,
with it.
Thanks for being a part of our event.
Thank you, Butch.
You've been a great contributor here, and thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it.
All right, Kurt Johnson, and continued success with Courion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this is part of our coverage of HealthIT 2012.